vehicle or over the roadway itself.
Okay.
And it's more so going west on Ladysmith Road. It is more so on the left-hand side of the roadway.
Okay.
I'd appreciate that.
No problem.
Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I think that's it, Mr. White. That's
Okay.
Brian in the back with you, right?
Right here with me?
Yes.
That's Rodney Newton.
Rodney, right.
Yes.
Okay. We met recently, a couple of weeks ago. We need to meet again more formally at the same place if you have an opportunity. But I think that's it. We definitely appreciate your help, and you're not going to go away just yet. We're going to talk about the 6-year plan next. So
Yes, sir.
That's you or?
Susan Gardner is here with me also. She's our program specialist in program and investment, and she's here to give you a briefing on that 6-year plan and get some input from you all if you don't mind. And we would like to seek your assistance in scheduling a public hearing for the 6-year plan in the next month or so. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, what was your last name?
Gardner.
Gardner. Okay. I didn't want to call you Susan and Mr. White, so Ms. Gardner, we're all yours.
If you take a look at the first sheet, the first line will show you the available funds that have not been programmed to any project, which is only a total of $156,000 that needs to be programmed. I'm sorry. Don't kill the messenger, please.
It's like a quarter mile? Maybe a quarter mile.
If it's a good road.
Yeah.
The second line is your telefee line, and that money has already been programmed to a project. And then the last line is your total for the year for each 6 years. On the second page, I'll start at the top and go down through each project. The first project is Route 639 from Route 1 to 95, which is fully funded and is currently in the preliminary engineering stage. The second project is Route 633, which is a bridge replacement. The next project is Route 742, Rollins Corner Road, which is fully funded, which is an unpaved road.
We've been trying to do that for years.
It's fully funded, and it's due to be hopefully done sometime later this summer, maybe early fall. I know they've got a couple of them that they're trying to get done before this one. So it might be early springtime before it gets done. But it's fully funded, so that's the good part. The second one is Schoolhouse Road, and that'll be funded as of July 1 of this year. Then we have Coleman Town Road, which was had an estimate of $352,000, so it took a little bit longer to fund, and that's funded in the FY 14-15 years. Yeah, 15-16, sorry. On the third sheet, we will start with the Rural Addition Fund. You currently have $310,000. You can use that fund to bring any rural additions into the state system. I know we had worked with the county, and they had talked about putting Carter, but we couldn't get everybody to agree to giving up a little bit of property. So I have not received any more from the county. If you choose to, you can use that money for other projects within the county, like doing more unpaved roads. And then the second one is countywide engineering. There are items that might pop up over the years that y'all want us to take a look at, and we have a fund to go out there and do some engineering objects. Yes, sir?
Because you're no longer at the request of the local government going to do speed studies for free.
That's the traffic one, the countywide traffic section. That's where that money will be coming from. Yes, sir.
Feel free to be brutally honest with me.
I was just, yes, sir.
Because that's the reality.
Yes, sir.
And that's not your fault.
No.
It's somebody else's fault in Richmond, but we're not going to blame the messenger. We just.
But if you want a speed study done, we are going to do it for you. You know that. And so whether there's a dollar there, we'll find the money to do speed studies at your request.
1 second. Is that tape running? We're good.
I have just one question, Mr. Thomas. How much does a speed study cost? Because I see we have 20,000. Is that one study? Is that?
You actually have 16,566. for your traffic.
Oh.
And I would have to get back with you on how much a speed study would cost. And again, if you wish to have that booted down, we can use that money for other projects. Okay?
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, it's not something we do frivolously. It's really
Right.
citizen concerns.
Right.
They're usually safety concerns, so that's the only reason.
Right. And I've been doing the 6-year plan for this county for probably about 7 years, 8 years now. I had gone through them many years before, and I had pretty much cut them down to bare bones. So we were using every dollar that the county was given to do their projects. So this is pretty much at the bare bones that I've gotten all the projects to. Okay. The third sheet will show you the current unpaved roads. As you can see, we've already ranked 1, 2, and 3 on there. The first road there is Durrett Road, which has been placed on hold because of all the construction over there. And then the next one in line with the needed traffic count is Faulkner Lane, which is 741, then Sorrell Lane, and then Old CC Road. And those 3 roads meet the minimum 50-day traffic count. So if the county wishes to proceed on with continuing to pave their unpaved, roads with the funding that they have, we would just look for you to place them in the order that you would like them done. Okay, now I do have one good news. I did find a little money when I was closing out some projects. So I did find about $64,000. So, because when they close the projects out, you have to move the money around. So for a total of unprogrammed funds, you have $220,000 that will need to be placed on a project. Okay?
Unpaved roads.
Pardon me?
That money is at the unpaved road category?
No, sir. It can be used on any project.
Extra 64,000.
Yes. Any project that you wish to do, yes. It's no restrictions on that 64,000.
I'm sure we'll deliberate that more during the public
Okay.
hearing, so.
That's fine.
Okay. And you want us to commit to a public hearing date?
Yes, sir.
It has to be done by June, is that?
June 1st.
Okay.
The second,
On the 606 project, if we were to want to utilize that 64,000 to help offset some of that cost, could we do that?
For the railroad, I'm currently looking to find money for that.
Okay.
Yes, I have been told that we could possibly use it, but I'm trying to dip into some other safety funds.
Well, why don't we do that first?
So I am working on that. I
Okay.
did start that today,
Okay.
after being told everything. So I am looking into that, so I can give an update to Rodney for y'all.
All right, appreciate it.
Okay?
Thank you.
okay. How does the board feel about, I was just looking, how does the board feel about May 10th? And then if there's an issue or question, we still have the 24th to finalize and get it back to you by June.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll schedule our public hearing May 10th. We got plenty of time to advertise, so we're all set.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your help. We appreciate it. And we look forward to you finding more money.
I'll try.
Makes it too. Yeah, I'll do too. All right, next is a report from the redistricting committee. And
Good evening, sir.
how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. How are you, sir?
Doing great.
I'm Duke Whiteside, and I was appointed the chairman of the committee. I'm not going to go through all this reading. I think y'all could do that on your own without my help. One of the things that we did want to do first is to thank y'all for allowing us to come together as a committee to serve the county. We do want to thank Mr. Fincham, Ms. Pitts, Ms. Hamig, and of course Ms. Cosby for all the wonderful help. They got us through all the technical stuff that we needed to understand. Mr. Thomas came to the first meeting and explained to us what the board was endeavoring for us to do, looking at a 5, 6, and 7 district options. We took the responsibility very seriously. We looked at all the ramifications that were involved in that, involving this communities of interests and other concerns, keeping landmark embarkations for districts so that there was something solid there instead of a street. There would be an actual river or whatever. We tried to take a look at all the different advantages from all of the 3 proposals that we came up with. One of our first areas that we did look at was a consistency in the districts themselves, keeping in mind our concerns of retrogression. Some of the things that we were concerned about when we did look at them, some of the districts look really small, but that's because there's such a large population of people compacted in such a very small area. And then you have other districts that look huge, and when you go out there and take a look, you see that it's mostly filled with cows, not a lot of people. So that kind of balances out. Some disadvantages to our recommendation was the fact of the way the population has changed in the county, and that's what brought us to our recommendation to the board of accepting a 5-district. We looked at all the other counties around us of similar makeup. We looked at counties that were actually larger than ours, and they were still with 5 districts. Then we looked at our own. One of the things we were concerned about is the dilution of the minority voting strength. In a 5-district, we're about 20%. But if we go to a 6-district, it drops to 17%. And when we go to a 7-district, it drops as low as 13%. That kind of bothered us. And that's one of the reasons why we came up with our recommendation of staying with the 5 districts. Now I can go through all the rest of this nice paperwork they put together, but I figure y'all can read it just as easy as I can. I promise you I'd keep it short.
All right, Mr. Whiteside,
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. This is the actual first presentation or the presentation of your work.
Yes, sir.
So I take it the committee has said they're finished.
We were unanimous on the final votes for all 3 of the versions we put through.
Okay, and this is exactly, you've done exactly what the board and the planning staff has asked you to do. We do appreciate that, and for me personally, you and Ms. Keith were 2 people who signed up on the county website.
Yes, sir.
And said, I'd like to help. And you signed up, and now you're the chairman. Funny how that works, isn't it?
Yes, sir. I made the mistake of getting up and going to the other room for a minute.
So did I. So did I.
We understand.
So, all right, what I think our next step, Mr. Fincham, is, if I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we will take these 3 options along with the committee's recommendation, and we must hold a public hearing. And based on the public hearing, comments, any last tweaks, changes here and there, we'll come up with a final solution.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The recognizing the federal review process, the possibility of primaries, the absolute minimum that you need to send a recommendation to Department of Justice is 90 days prior to the primary, which actually would be between your first and second meetings in May. So worst case scenario, you would need to make a recommendation by your May 10th meeting, which would suggest either a public hearing and action that night or a public hearing April 12th, which would give you some time to consider public comment in the event you wanted further discussion or review.
April 12th is, April's an even month, so we only have one meeting.
Yes, sir.
Officially in April, but I would imagine there's probably going to be a budget work session around in that time. We could probably take action. So you're saying we have to actually make a recommendation to the Justice Department by May? We don't, right?
Yes, sir. And DOJ review time is 60 days, and they have to complete their review and at least 30 days prior to the election. So that's where you get your minimum of a 90-day figure. If DOJ comes back with questions, comments, concerns, the 60-day review process in theory starts over again. So
Do we have to have, for that public hearing, we have to have 2 weeks notice? Got to appear twice, right?
yes, sir.
So we could realistically do the public hearing April 12th, because you have 3 weeks from now, right?
Yes, sir. It would require the ad to be in the paper this Friday. Yes, sir.
Doesn't the board want to do that? The sooner we hold a public hearing on the options, the more time we have to deliberate and the more time we have to get citizen input. Okay. All right, Mr. Parton, can you make that happen, April 12th?
Chairman, do you need a motion to that
I'll
effect?
take a, thank you so much. I'll take a motion to authorize staff to advertise for April 12th public hearing on redistricting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Popowitz, seconded by Mr. Akers, that we will hold a public, we will authorize staff to advertise for a public hearing on April 12th. Discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Whiteside, would you, how many other members of the redistricting committee are here with you? Could you folks just stand for a quick second, just so we could see the folks that were on the redistricting committee? And this is not the entire committee, but this is just, these are folks that showed up, okay. Well, we want to thank you all for your hard work. I know it's not an easy job, and we can see from the maps we have that sometimes the districts, because of the requirements, get a little funny shapes, you know, so it's not anything we're doing on purpose. That's kind of the way it has to be. But thank you, folks. We do appreciate your help, and we do appreciate your time. We'll probably see you on April 12th. We'll be there. Okay. Have we decided that? You want to do that during the public hearing? Mr. Akers is asking me, we talked about briefly before about staggered terms. Does the board wish to pursue that now or discuss it April 12th? I'm not sure how we go about doing staggered terms.
I just don't think staggered terms are gonna help much because of the other election cycles that go with it.
It helps the county, I mean, because I do believe, and if it was not working for other counties, you wouldn't see most counties in the state of Virginia going to staggered terms. Caroline is probably, not the only, I'm not saying that at all, but it's probably in the minority of counties that do not have staggered terms. And that's for protection of the citizens, protection of the county, is the fact that when you have all members up for re-election at the same time, and everybody gets wiped out at one time, whether we think so or not, it is tough to come into this position and know everything about everything. And it takes time to understand the operations of the county and things of that nature. And I think that it would hurt the county. It could very well hurt the county if that happened where all 5 members were eliminated at one swoop. And I just believe staggered terms works well. It works well in every other county around us. And I think it could work well in Caroline County. I don't understand why it wouldn't work as well in Caroline County as it does all the other counties. And I think if you took a survey of all the counties in the state, out of the 95 counties, you'd probably find that it's probably, overwhelming. The majority of the counties do have staggered terms. And that's my only thought. I think it's something we need to talk about. It needs to be up for discussion with us, and especially since we're talking about a new census in a new district.
A new district. Yeah, my concern with staggered terms is just voter turnout. As the sheriff and the rest of the board members who have been there, Mrs. Carter, when all the county local officials are being elected, turnout is extremely high. It's sometimes higher than it is for a presidential election. Those are the two highest times. Whoever's running on that odd staggered year may not get the benefit of voter turnout, and that's my concern. I'm perfectly willing to talk about it.
Right, I think we need to talk about it.
You don't have to sell it to me now. We can discuss it sometime. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. So, Mr. Parton, do you have a legal?
Just going to mention, Mr. Chairman, if you weren't already aware of it, that staggered terms would require an ordinance amendment to a local county ordinance. So keep that in mind. I think that could be considered as part of the April 12th public hearing as well, but it does require an ordinance amendment.
Do we have time to make it happen? We don't really have time to make it happen this year, do we? Or do we not?
I think it would be on the same schedule of going to the Justice
So that's
Department.
Justice.
I mean, it would still need to be pre-cleared, and there are several ways to set the staggered terms, and some are by ordinance, and some are the Board of Elections, and so there are deadlines embedded in those statutes. But you should be fine right now, and if you went with the April 12th.
All right. Yeah, because I think
hearing.
when King George did it, they drew straws.
Mm-hmm.
And the longer the straw, the longer your term was, or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm. It can be set by ordinance, or the State Board of Elections can do it at a particular time, but that would have to be included in any ordinance.
Did the General Assembly this year pass that you could volunteer, a board member, a city board member could volunteer for his district to take the short term? Or their district to take the short term?
I believe it made it through both the House and Senate. I need to double check on that. Normally, that law would not take effect until July 1st, and I'm not aware that there was any emergency clause in that ordinance, but I'll double check.
So it could not happen this year based? Okay.
Volunteering may not be an option right now. It would be up to one of the two methods available to the Board of Elections unless that emergency clause was in there. And I'll double check for you, Mr. Akers.
Okay.
Do we need an amendment to the original motion to include the language of staggered terms?
No, that's a board discussion.
I mean, she said we have to have a public hearing.
For the ordinance. Yeah, but we're not necessarily, we haven't discussed it to make sure we have an ordinance.
Well, in my estimation, I think that we need to put it in the public hearing so the public can make comment on whether or not they want staggered terms or not.
Okay.
We don't get it.
Yeah, because if we don't do that, then we...
90-day.
We make it 90 days?
Yeah.
Mr. Underwood, your opinion? Staggered terms, not staggered terms, proceed?
I think it's a good idea. I think staggered terms is a good idea.
Okay.
I'd like
Put it in the.
Please hear the discussion.
So we'll leave your first one alone,
Okay.
as far as redistricting, and we'll have another public hearing. It appears the majority of the board says they would like a public hearing on staggered terms. So we'll have another public hearing on staggered terms, if I can get a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Popowitz, seconded by Mr. Underwood, that we hold a public hearing to determine if the county is going to move forward with staggered terms, I guess. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. I vote nay. So the motion would pass 4-1. I'm the dissenting vote. Okay. I know that look. Mr. Underwood, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Popowitz.
I vote aye.
Mr. Seeley.
I'll go with nay.
Mr. Akers.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas votes nay. So the motion passes 3-2. And we are going to look at a public hearing on staggered terms. That takes care of the report from the redistricting advisory committee and the subsequent questions. Sheriff Lippa, good to have you here. We were moving you up from agenda item 8 to move you into part of presentations, reports from staff and all the other folks. And Sheriff Lippa, I actually asked you here and I talked to you, the days run together, I think it was yesterday.
Yes, sir.
We had quite a bit of discussion at our last board meeting about school buses, mileage for school buses, when we should take the school buses out of service. They basically told us there was a federal requirement that said the school buses had to be out of service X amount of time. So we're going to look at school buses again and make sure we identify that federal requirement. But while we're doing that, we wanted to give you the opportunity to discuss the sheriff's vehicle replacement policy.
Okay, sir.
And you've given us quite a bit of information to review, so thank you.
Yes, sir, I did. We put this together, again, good evening to you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Seeley, Mr. Popowicz, Mr. Underwood. Good to see you. Mrs. Hall, Ms. Neal, and Mr. Parton. First and foremost, when it was asked to me about the Sheriff's Office replacement policy, we follow the county policy. You can hear me, right? Well, you can't hear me. I hate this thing. All right. We follow the county's policy, to which Major Moser had explained to me, goes back to the 90s. The reason why it appears that we're in this predicament here is because we did not purchase vehicles in the county policy to when they should have been replaced. When we asked for the 17, we should have in turn asked for 25, because that's how many is going to have more than the 120,000 replacement policy. So as we put this together and we look at the 17 vehicles, like I said, should have been 25, but the county's replacement schedule specifically regards the sheriff's vehicle is in line with all the surrounding jurisdictions. We've included that as a packet as we checked our neighbors. And we look at Spotsylvania, but first, before I go into that, the county's policy was the replacement of every 4 years and 120,000 miles. And we also have put together a chart of what the number of vehicles that we have and the years of the vehicles and how many we still have in the fleet. But going on, as we checked with Spotsylvania, they go to 125,000 miles. They do not have an age requirement. Hanover County replaces sheriff's vehicles at 5 years and 110,000 miles. King George Sheriff's Office still replaces theirs once they hit 100,000 miles. They do not have an age requirement. King and Queen County supplies their sheriff's office with a set number of cars each year. And when we were on like 8 for each year, it seemed like that pretty much had worked, but we were actually getting more vehicles because we needed them. When I first took over as sheriff, one of the things I heard was nobody ever saw a sheriff's deputy's car. So obviously, we're out there patrolling the streets, which then brings the mileage up, which then looks towards replacement. And again, we replaced our cars with 4 years and 120,000. Years of experience by various law enforcement agencies have proven that law enforcement vehicles with excess of 100,000 miles begin to experience much higher rate of mechanical failure and repair cost. Some of these vehicles can drastically affect both the officer and the civilian safety, which also leads to a longer response time, hinders the officer's retention. Law enforcement vehicles in excess of 120,000 due to a much higher repair and maintenance requirement can actually cost more to own per year than new vehicles. This includes the purchase price of the vehicle. In fact, the CCSO has experienced excessive repairs and maintenance costs this year, which are greater than what we could have purchased 2 brand new vehicles. These are repairs and maintenance costs that are in addition to the normal levels of typically seen with a newer fleet. Due to budget restrictions, the CCSO has not been able to replace vehicles in accordance with the county's policy for the last couple of years, as I stated earlier. This has led to an unusual high number of vehicles that need replacing over the next 2 fiscal terms. Caroline County Sheriff's Office currently has asked for 17 vehicles that exceed the county's replacement. These vehicles currently range from 4 to 9 years with an